May is over with, so it's time to answer questions that $5 supporters asked over the course of the month. If you have questions for the month of June, links are below. Let's start out on Subscribestar, where FunwithFacts asks, what is your solution to corporate lobbying? You've got a big problem here, because lobbying is just another term for asking politicians for stuff, and we have pretty solid First Amendment rights not only to speak, but to petition the government for redress of grievances. And keep in mind that petition doesn't just mean running around getting signatures on something. It can also cover protesting, accosting a politician on the street, and any other way of getting a politician's attention to get your message across. The Supreme Court has interpreted that clause very broadly. It covers any way you can peacefully engage with politicians, express your grievances, and advocate for change. So, how do you protect free speech and the right to petition while stopping lobbying? It doesn't look like you can because they're essentially the same thing. So, go to the root of the problem. Why do they lobby government? So government will do things for them. But how is it that government is able to do these things? Because it has the power to do these things. That is the problem. And the only solution there could ever logically be is to take power away from politicians. Tomasz Urbański asks, what is ownership? How can we reliably define it? How can we recognize it? Does it have both objective and subjective components? Ownership is basically exclusive control over something. Not only the right to do things with it, but the right to prevent others from doing things with it. The one purely objective and undeniable form of ownership is self-ownership. You own yourself, your mind, your body, and everything directly connected to it. Anyone who denies that wants you to be a slave, because that's what slavery is. And notice a pattern. They don't ever seem to imagine themselves becoming part of the slave class. So if you own yourself, you own your thoughts and your time. You can speak, and you can listen to others speak. You can defend yourself from being aggressed against. And you can invent and engage in commerce. You can trade labor for money. You can start a business. And everything you gain from every voluntary exchange you engage in becomes your property, from the house you live in to the water bottle you're drinking out of, because it represents the piece of yourself you gave up to obtain it. Anyone wanting to take that by force is therefore laying claim on that piece of you. And by the way, it doesn't magically stop being legitimate property just because you start using it as a means of production. So anyone laying claim on any of that is denying your self-ownership. Theft, government, socialism, anything else that denies you the fruits of your own efforts is laying a claim against you, making you, to some degree, their slave. That's really all there is to it. Dickin Myanus asks, in a hypothetical situation where someone who wants to dismantle the state gets voted as POTUS, what do you think the statist voters who really hate that outcome would do? Well, to start with, the ruling class would have a hissy fit, and since they basically control the news media, they'd throw everything they have at the guy to discredit him and lie about him. What they're doing to Trump now would look like a schoolyard taunt by comparison. They'd go running to the courts, even SCOTUS, saying that the president is violating his oath of office and acting unconstitutionally by refusing to faithfully execute the law. Since all the judges are statists, I don't think much of that president's chances. Congress would probably impeach him in record time, and unless over a third of the Senate were also anarchists, he'd be out of there. Law enforcement, which is really the heart and soul of statism, but especially the intelligence community, would foment unrest and discredit the president's ability to keep order, showing how chaotic and horrible anarchy is. You might even have states like California seceding if the president had any amount of success at all in dismantling the government. So, yeah, there's a lot they could do. But if he got elected, Assuming he ran on an anarchist platform and didn't hide his true position, he'd have the support of a huge proportion of the American people, and they'd push back against it. Considering all the violence and riots prompted by smaller issues like civil rights, the statists wouldn't be going down without a fight. And finally, let's pop on over to Patreon, where Darth Vega asks, could you give your opinion on all the reasons why Linux is superior to Windows, and maybe also macOS? I assume you're a Linux guy. I don't have anywhere near enough time to do all of them. That would take a year or more. So let's begin with the big one. It's free! Not only do you not have to pay for it and do any licensing crap and run it on as many machines as you want, it's also about freedom as well. You're not at the mercy of any corporation exercising control over what you do. Since it's open source, you have tons of customization options. Even if you don't know how to code, you can take advantage of others that do and use the things they wrote and shared. And have your options of window managers like Mate or KDE or Cinnamon. And you're not locked into a single user experience like you are on Windows and Mac. Security is another big one. Especially compared to Windows, Linux is much more secure out of the box and easier to tighten security as well. Although there is Linux malware, it's harder for it to run and spread, and if you're infected, the damage can be contained. Linux's open source nature also means that vulns can be found and patched more quickly. Privacy is a related issue, and unlike macOS and Windows, Linux doesn't collect any information from you or report any data about you. Stability is another advantage over Windows, although macOS compares well here. There are some Linux systems that have an uptime of decades. If you need a server or other critical system, Linux is a good choice. Performance is just better. Use the exact same hardware and version of Blender and try using it on Windows and on Linux, both modeling and rendering. It's just faster at all of it. And that's without doing your own customizations like compiling your own kernel. Linux runs really well on older hardware too, and you don't have to worry about it not being supported or anything. In fact, despite what you've probably heard, Linux runs on a much greater variety of hardware too. macOS really has a disadvantage here, as Apple keeps tight control over what hardware its users can have, and even what kind of repairs are allowed. Circling back to the first one, all of that means a lower TCO as well, the total cost of ownership. Not only do you not have to pay for software upgrades, hardware doesn't have to be upgraded as often, your productivity is up, and maintenance costs are lower due to better security and stability. Really, the only reason to use Windows is if you need software that's only available on Windows, which is becoming less and less the case. Not just open source software like Blender, but also prominent software like DaVinci Resolve has Linux versions. Sadly, though, that isn't always the case. I really wish GIMP were as good as Photoshop, but it just isn't even close. And despite there being a lot of programmers at Adobe who want to do Linux versions, the corporate bigwigs won't go for it. And there's a number of other software programs where that's the case as well. So a lot of us are locked into Windows, sadly, and for completely arbitrary reasons. So thanks so much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and check out other videos on my channel and like and share them as well. And of course, go to donate.bogosity.tv for all sorts of ways to support, including PayPal, Venmo, and various cryptocurrencies, or become a regular supporter at Patreon, Subscribestar, and Discord. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.